I saw yesterday on a friend's post on Facebook where he had posted an animation. And the animation basically told this story. There were these twins who were raised by an alcoholic. Same genetics, same life experiences. One became an alcoholic and one didn't. The moral of the story was that it's the choices that we make that determine the outcomes. We can choose to be a victim or we can choose to be a victor. We can choose to live in failure or we can choose to live in success. And all that is true. Those are choices that we make, but how free are those choices? Of course, the animation was making the point that here are two people in the same situation that have the same genetic makeup, living in the same environment, and their lives were shaped differently by those experiences. We tend to believe that. It makes us feel good. Because if we've gained some success in our lives or we have become a decent human being, we can point to this was our choosing, our will that has determined that. So we lack humility. Or I do. So often. You know, here's the problem I see with that animation. One, it was making the assumption that this was a actual event that occurred and not just a hypothetical. I don't know the research that went behind that animation. So I don't know if that illustration was actually true. But let's suppose that it was, that you have these two identical twins. It didn't say identical in the animation, but let's assume that you have two twins who are identical. Therefore, their DNA was identical. They were pre-wired the same. They lived in the same life experiences and had two different outcomes. It's making a couple of assumptions. Number one, it's making the assumption that truly identical twins are identical in their DNA. They're identical in their wiring. Studies have shown at UAB, for instance, and universities in Europe that have studied identical twins, they're not identical in their DNA. They're almost identical. Where all of us share 99.9% of our DNA with one another, it's always been assumed that identical twins are 100% identical in DNA. Well, the studies show that that is not true. They're not identical. So there's something different within their wiring from their twin. We can even know this because they don't have the same fingerprints. So that's assumption number one. Assumption number two is that their experiences were identical. We don't know what other outside stimuli that these twins had. We don't know their friends. We don't know if there might have been a teacher of one of these children that spoke into their life some life-affirming information that changed their perception of their situation. So we're making a lot of assumptions, thinking that these two twins have come to different places in their life purely on their will. Now, granted, our choices appear to be real. We come to a four-way stop and we have the choice to either go straight or go right or go left or do a U-turn in the middle of the four-way stop. We have that choice. It appears to be real to us. And yes, we can change the direction of our lives by just making better choices. That's true. But how do we get to the point to doing that? How do we get to the point of making those better choices? How do we get to the point of making a better society? These are all questions I have. I don't know all the answers. But it just appears to me that our will, though it's free to some extent, it is limited. We come pre-wired, and every information that we put into our minds wires us even differently than the day before. Each new experience changes us and our perception of the world. It changes our ability to make the choices that we need to make. You know the old adage, there but the grace of God go I. Most of us have said that at some point when we've seen the person who is down and out or strung out on drugs. Do we really mean it? I don't know if we really mean it. Because for me, I lack the humility and I lack the empathy to really mean that statement. I think if we change our ideas about how we make our choices and how other people make their choices, that we can gain humility. We can really truly say that there but the grace of God go I. We can really look at the reality that, there but the grace of my DNA and my life experiences, I would be in that same situation. If I had the same genetic makeup and gone through the same experiences they had, and my mind was wired the same way their mind was wired, I'd make the identical choices they've made, good or bad. The key, I think, is to understand that as we are progressing as individuals, that we put the right stimuli into our brain to change our choices, to make better choices, and also to help others do the same. So, to live in humility, empathy, compassion, love. That's what we need, is love. Or that's what I need. So that's my rantings on free will today. That maybe it's not as free as we think it is, but there's a workaround. We can put good information into our minds, and we can help those around us put good information in their minds. See you next time.